Right, so greetings, welcome, Morag. I'd like to introduce Morag Fairley, who's here joining us from Scotland for the Midsummer Solstice Peace Festival. And didn't come on the actual day, she was busy, but she's now joined us, and in the Celtic Druid world, festivals went on for 3 days anyway, so we're still in the solstice mood. Morag has been very active in many things in Scotland. She's a spiritual seeker. We met through a rather extraordinary circumstance. The day I moved into the Castle of the Muses up in Scotland, the very next morning at 6:30, I had to go and get a bus to join a parish that was going to hear the Pope's Mass in Glasgow. The timing was extraordinary. And who do I meet on the bus at the top was Morag and her daughter. So we shared the journey in to hear the Pope. This was Pope Benedict. He's still there, but in retirement. And I was very impressed by that day. It was an extraordinary, interesting event, and it seemed appropriate to be there at the start of my trip. And I spent 7 years in Scotland. And then Morag and I became good friends. She used to visit the castle with her family and so on. And we had some interesting, adventures, which she might tell us a bit more about. So anyway, Morag, welcome. And
thank you.
Yeah.
Lovely to be here. Thank you for the invite.
No, it's important, and I did spend 7 years in Scotland, and I got to love and know the Scottish people and their cause for independence. It took me a while to catch up to speed, because when I first arrived in Scotland, I'd just been teaching at very posh schools in England, and felt that the British establishment, was fundamentally good and could do the right thing.
Mm.
And it's been a real disillusionment for me to realize that actually they're pretty rotten to the core. And I'm shocked at what Boris Johnson and his cronies are doing. So how have you seen the last few years since I left Scotland? What's it been like for you?
There's been a lot of underhandedness. Since the original 2014. There was a lot of scaremongering back then, where they told people they'd lose their pension, would be taken out the EU, they'd lose benefits, wouldn't be able to find jobs, all this kind of stuff. My own mother, God rest her soul, she phoned me in tears, inconsolable, because a no person had came to her door and utterly terrified her. It's like with all sorts of stories of what would happen if she didn't vote to stay within the union. So I think that's what happened. A lot of why people were like, no, I can't do this. But since then, people have started to realise, well, wait a minute, everything they said it started to happen anyway. We were taking out the EU against it. It's like we voted to stay. It's like quite overwhelmingly, so well over 50%. I think it was 65%, 65% of the Scots people, it's like voted to stay within the union.
Yeah.
It's like there's a lot of people, there's stories coming out recently of people that came over here when they were babies, they're 2-3 years old, and their parents came, and some of them have been here for 70 years. They've now got a pension, they've raised a family here, their grandchildren are here, and they've been told that they have to apply to stay in the UK. Because they were maybe born in Germany or born in Italy or born somewhere else, have been told that they're having to go back. And this is 74-year-old people. And they're like,
yeah,
seriously, that is not what Scotland is about. That's not going to be allowed. The same happened when immigration arrived. It's like in the wee early hours of the morning in Glasgow to try and take someone, and the entire street came out in force.
Yeah, I saw that.
And start saying not our neighbours. It's like the part of Glasgow, the part of us. It's like, we're not going to stand for this. It's not going to happen. Scotland's been fighting for our freedom for 700 years, since the times of the Bruce and the Wallace, and before and after and since. And we're going to keep fighting the good fight, and hopefully this time it's like it's changing. There is an air of change out there.
Yeah. So tell me, we've just had the anniversary of Bannockburn, the Battle of Bannockburn.
Yes, we have.
Bruce. I mean, that was his great military triumph.
Yes.
And you're quite interested in the Bruce, aren't you? Tell us a bit about him. Where was he from? Why is he important to Scottish history and to the independence struggle?
Oh, I love the Bruce. If you think back then, it was a lot of politics the way it is now. Oh, and it's like the families and clan chiefs and various other people, they're forced to pay homage to the king, who unfortunately wasn't the Bruce at the time. It was King of England, and eventually the Bruce and some of the other, he got some of the nobles together and some of the other clan chiefs together, and he's like, look, we're going to have to break a vow. It's like this is wrong. It's like what he's doing to Scotland. We have to stand up for Scotland. We have to stand up for our people. We need to rally. We need to fight. And that's how it started. And he started to gain traction. He started to gain trust. He was the rightful heir by blood, but he would not have been recognised unless the Countess de Buchan. So her husband forbade her from coming to his life. I forbid you, you will not crown that king. So she had to sneak away in terms of darkness, to flee away over the border. It's letting a couple of her friends helped her, and she was actually imprisoned for that. She was locked up for because she sneaked up here. She stole money, stole a horse, and sneaked away over the border so she could crown the king. Because he was crowned beforehand, and then he was recrowned by the Countess of Buchan at Scone Palace. So we often reenact that in honour of that. We also honour other battles, such as the Battle of Bannockburn, because that was his great victory.
Yeah.
The English says, it's like, look, deal with it. I'm going to France to fight in your corner, so when I get back, it better be dealt with. So of course they sent the Great Army. So Scots were outnumbered 10-1, 20-1, maybe more than that. They're not sure of the numbers, but it was at least a third to 2/3 outnumbered. But of course the Scot, we knew the lands. The English didn't. They were used to fighting in nice flat, even ground, and it's like, where Scotland's not like that at all. You've been here yourself. It's marshy, it's boggy, it's full of midges, it's it's covered in heather, it's gorgeous.
Yeah.
But not really. It's better for guerrilla warfare than what it is for a nice clean battle and in a nice solid field. It's like that's not what Scotland's really prepared for at all. So the Scots won quite easily. But we took them down. But of course, human nature, people will get greedy. And we think that's what happened. It's like they made the chieftains and the other people just too greedy to say no, to turn them down. So of course he was betrayed, and he was eventually caught when he was taken down to England.
You're talking about Wallace now. You're talking about Wallace.
No, the Bruce was also taken to England. It's like where he was murdered as well. It's like he was not. He was captured, taken to England. He was brought back. There's also a rumor that he went and he went to the Pope. That I try as part of my studies. I try to get a hold of medieval documents. And apparently they were destroyed during the referendum. There's no actual records. I don't know if there's any in the Vatican archives because I couldn't get access at the time when I first asked for them. But the story is that the Bruce went to Rome to ask if the Pope would join him and for Scottish independence and he agreed, and he came back with the relevant papers. But it was stopped, and there's no. I can't actually remember if that was the Wallace or the Bruce, but one of them went to I'm pretty sure it was the Bruce, but one of them went to went to the Pope in Rome, and I can't find those documents. If we could find those documents, it's
of our
the same as like the Declaration of Arbroath. That's still adhered to by law.
Sure.
And then there's other things such as the SNP has brought in a lot of laws to coincide with European law, such as child protection laws.
Right.
Westminster is in the process of taking the SNP and the Scottish Government to court to undo those laws. If somebody wants to undo child protection laws.
Yeah, that's bonkers.
Yeah.
You'd have to be a Tory, a complete madman, to think of doing that. I mean, I think they have literally gone demonic.
I mean, when you're talking about taking away, I mean, it protects children. It's protecting babies. It's protecting the rights of the child. And it's like, why would you want to take that away?
Yeah, well, I mean, why would you want to leave the European Union, which has so many protections for workers, for everyone involved in society? So I mean,
a lot of people have been talking about football at the moment, and it's like, because the Euros are taking part just now, so there's a lot of hype out there. There's a lot of excitement out there, and I was laughing. I was like, well, enjoy it while it lasts. And they're like, what do you mean? We're not in Europe anymore, so you can't take part in Europe. And they're like, no. So even wee things like that they didn't realise, or they were like, wait a minute, we won't be allowed. Oh, well, no. Why would you play in Euros when we're not part of Europe? So you wouldn't play within European football.
Well, I think other European countries that aren't part of the European Union can play, so I don't think that's a problem. But tell us a bit more about your own studies, because you're an endless student, aren't you? You've done degrees. Yes. Now you're doing another one. What do you find through your studies? Tell us about your research.
It's been interesting. It's been an interesting journey. It's like from, I love books. It's like that was one of the things that we very much had in common, was our love of literature and books, and so I love everything from a good old fashioned romance to a true historical page turner. I was actually Dan Brown when I read him, and he was on about symbology.
Right.
And I was like, wait a minute. So it's like, because it says it's like the art and the actual historical parts are true, even though the entire book was an act of fiction. So of course, me being me, I started pulling out all my art books and all my history books and looking back, and I was like, okay, yep, that's in that painting. Yep, those symbols are the same, such as the swastika with the Hindu and it's like with the ancient with the Hindu symbol of peace. And then I've got, even within the Celtic traditions, it's like, and with some modern ones, it's like the upside down cross. It's like a lot of people, it's like they'll see an upside down cross and they'll go, oh, that's devil worship, that's this, that's it. I was like, no, that's the cross of St. Peter.
Right.
Because St. Peter didn't want to be crucified the same as our Lord, so he was crucified upside down.
Right.
And of course, St. Andrew, our flag is an X, because he was crucified within the X. It's like with his arms and legs splayed within the X. Hence our flag is our patron saint. So that started to get me thinking, the crossovers of history and symbology. I started to read more and more about Druidry and our ancient Celts from our own land. It's like teachers, healers, great wise people of, it's like they were very often went to, it's like if there was a village argument or there was something a bit untoward happening, it's like they'd go to the Druids and go, look, we're having this argument, what do we do? And that led me to more and more work. And as you know, I was already supporting my dad's over at the head of his church. After he passed, I continued to work with them, the Catholic Church of England and Wales. Archbishop James Atkinson Wake. I still support him even to this day. I'll still do the odd bit of paperwork or the odd, and I've actually travelled all over the world with him. It's like when he's been consecrating new bishops and priests and all that kind of stuff. And I've helped him with his work, and I've learned a lot between pre-Vatican, when it's like the original Latin Mass, and of course the Catholic Mass that we know today. And then a friend of mine asked me to help her at an event with the Church of England. And I was like, yes, of course I'll help. So I went along, and I was like, wait a minute, this is the exact same Nicene Creed that we say, or used to say, before they changed the words. So that started me thinking more about the Christianity side of things and the crossovers within the Christian religion. And then, of course, through the degree, it's like we've covered the Reformation, we've covered some parts of Christianity, Buddhism. After the summer, we're getting into Muslim, Sikh, and Hindu, as well as more into Christian side of things. I think it is after the summer. And yeah, it's a great journey of learning. Because in Glasgow alone is the largest Sikh temple in this country.
Right.
It's a fabulous building. I don't know if you've managed to, if you've had the privilege of visiting. And then, of course, there's a Buddhist centre in Glasgow. There's Jewish temples. There's Catholic churches. There's Christian. There's Jewish synagogues. It's like there's Muslim temples. It's like there's just about every faith imaginable.
And there's a museum of religions, isn't there, in Glasgow?
There is. It's called the Museum of Religious Life and Study.
Yeah, I like that.
And it's a fabulous place. It's about 3 stories, I think, 3 or 4 stories. And it's a big round building. It's a big circular building. And you go all the way up, and you can branch off into different floors, and then you go all the way up to the top. It's next to the old hospital, the original hospital at the bottom end of Glasgow. Yeah. And I think it's a fabulous place to visit.
Yeah, no,
and that's one of the things that I'd like to work towards. There's peace festivals out there, and there's religious festivals out there, and then of course for Druids and for pagans, you know, that we've got things like the summer solstice and the winter solstice, Samhain, etc. But there's none that bring us all together. Just one big giant festival where you have, say, for example, off the top of my head, 10 different faiths, right? Because there's only the minimum of that in Scotland. And I actually learned this when I was in India, and it shocked me that they'd done this. It's like, and it says, please, this is, right, we're in here, safe space. This is going to be our safe space. Ask us any question where you think, it doesn't matter if it sounds racist, discriminatory, strange, weird, you know, might be a sensible question, anything at all, any question you think, ask it. You know, we'd rather you know than go away ignorant. So please ask the questions. You know, so everybody asks different questions from, are there such a thing as road laws? Because traffic can get a bit crazy over there. What road laws do you have? To the different types of saris, and there's different costumes and where they wear them, why, you know, it's like to the various religions and all sorts of other things. And it was a fascinating time, and it got me thinking that it's like we should have more of this.
Where was this in India? When were you in India?
I was in India in 2017 with Girl Guiding. We went for 3 weeks, and for the first 10 days we stayed at Sangam, which is a guiding bothy, a guiding place in India, in Pune, where we carried out various different types of community work and charity work and all that. I volunteered with a fabulous project called Green Tara Foundation, which a doctor started she started it for young people, and I worked with her and the children. It's like with the Green Tara, some of them went to the schools. It's like other ones went to the slums and helped there, or helped at creches, or it was all sorts of different community work that we done. So that was for the first 10 days, and then for the next we had a wee bit of a holiday where we went to places like Agra and saw the Taj Mahal, and we also went to the Great Lake, and it was brilliant. It was absolutely fantastic. I'll never forget it.
Like a mother guide, you've been doing girl guiding. You train them in Scotland. Are you one?
Yes.
I don't know, what do they call you? A mother guide or a mother hen?
No, just a guider. My health went a wee bit. I ended up with fibromyalgia. And I've just recently started getting, but that's what got me into more of my studies. I started doing more of the academic side of things rather than the physical side of things, because my body wouldn't really let me do the physical anymore. So
Right.
I started to read more and do more of the academics. But girl guiding is worldwide. Even though it was based here, started here by Olivia Baden-Powell. Baden-Powell's wife, because after the girls saw how much fun the boys were having with the scouts, so like, we want something like that for us.
Right.
So that's what happened, and it's been running for over 100 years. Rainbows, that's the youngest group. They go from 5 years old. They haven't been running as long. They've been going for about 30 years now. Brownies, they've been running for a fair while, well over 50 years. So I was a brownie, and I'm 42 this year. I've known other ones that were older than me, and they were brownies. That's from 7. And we do all sorts of various things, from first aid right the way through to arts and crafts and swimming and dancing and community work, and also to achieve badges and achieve patches and work within our community and help make friends and get out and about.
And is peace
fun.
The core ethos is about peace, isn't it? I mean,
yes, the core ethos of girl guiding is peace, love, respect, friendship. It doesn't matter. They say that they're non-denominational, so it doesn't matter if you're every faith or none. You're welcome through that door. It's like you could be the most devout Christian, Muslim, Sikh, Jewish person, pagan. It's like it does not matter. It's like you are welcome through that door, and it doesn't matter even if you have no faith at all. If you're atheist, you don't believe in God or any kind of deity, or you're also welcome. You're not penalised just because you don't believe. You're more than welcome, and that's what it's all about. It's about teaching respect. It's about breaking down barriers. It's about asking those questions and finding out, rather than continuing that ignorance and continuing that discrimination.
Sure. So I just want to say, just to share something for our people tuning in, that one of the most interesting things that Morag and I got up to is when I lived at the Castle of the Muses in Argyll, her father, who was a bishop in the Catholic Church, a branch of the Universal Church, and who was a fascinating man. I met him. He was a forester and a scholar. He was a theologian. You know, he had a great library, and obviously Morag's inherited a lot of his.
Yes, my love of theology and philosophy came from him.
Yeah, yeah. And you were there when he was. Did you not go to Rome when he had some kind of elevation ceremony or something? Didn't you not go to the Vatican?
I did indeed. They were. I'm not quite sure what they done. No, it's like I was just there as the secretary to take all the pictures and do all the paperwork and write up the notes and the minutes and all that kind of stuff. And that was for like the first 2-3 days, so to speak, and then I was free to have a bit of a holiday. But yeah, they got all dressed up in their full garb, their full bishop's robes and the thummas and all the rest of it, and then they get taken away by the Vatican people. It's like in the old black suits and taken into the Vatican. But the next day, who was the head of security at the time, Gianfranco, lovely guy, great guy, what a character. He invited us down. Dad actually met him during the Pope John Paul's benediction, because they were there for the well, it's not benediction, sorry, the beatification. They were there for the beatification of Pope John Paul. I've got all the photographs for that, actually. It's like during the time that there was hundreds and hundreds of priests and bishops and from all over the world that was at the beatification.
So this
I gave him a tip. I says to him, I was like, I'm going to give you a tip. I said, see, at that kind of event, I says, one of the most important things to do is make friends with the catering and the crew. I was like, so crew covers everybody. I was like, the security, it's like, talk to them, make friends with them. I was like, you look after it, because they're the first people to arrive hours and hours and hours before you do, and setting up and and building and doing all this kind of stuff, and they're the last people to leave because they have to clear up after everybody and do it. So you show that bit, you show that they will look after you, they will remember it. So he came back and he was like, I remembered what you said, and I was so well looked after. He's like, I could not have been well enough looked after. And that's when he first met Gianfranco. So he told him that he was bringing me. So of course the first, make sure you bring her to St. Peter's and to the Vatican, and I'll make sure you're given VIP treatment. And wow, were we? And it's like he took us down into the catacombs and into the we saw the vaults and and all these doors were unlocking, and of course folk were staring at us. Who are these strange people that's getting to go into all these secret doors, being led through gates, and the security person's locking behind them. So it's like we got a lot of that. And he also took us behind the glass of the Pietà. No, that was my highlight. Because Michelangelo he's one of my favourite artists. I love him. I love him. And when we're taken behind the gate, actually, I have physically got to touch the Pietà, and I've never ever forgotten that. It's like we were taken into the reliquaries, we were taken all sorts through other places, and it's like before he had to leave us and to carry on to do our own thing. In the middle of the museum, he was called away for something. So, but he was cut short. But I've never ever forgotten that I got to touch the Pietà.
Somebody told me recently. I was on I think it was someone at this Midsummer Festival. I can't remember who now. Said they'd been down underneath the tomb of St. Peter, which is up by the altar there at the Vatican. There's some catacombs down below. And this person said they'd been down there, I can't remember how, and that there were lots of frescoes on the wall, very early primitive frescoes of goddess images like Isis and things like this. Did you get down there and see those as well?
I will neither confirm nor deny. No, yes, there are. It's like as you go through, there's like a long corridor, and then there's like it's hard to describe. I suppose you could nooks. I suppose it's like where it opens out into rooms, and it's like there's a big arched. It's a big arched type. And some of them it's just got a fresco in the back wall.
Right.
And others, it's not just the back wall; it's also the entire archway that's painted.
Like priestesses and little figures.
Yeah, there's everything, and it's like I think it looked. I don't know this for fact, but it looked to be the influence of the likes of Leonardo, Bernini, and the great artists of the time that done work for the Vatican.
I think we need to get a guidebook to the underground catacombs of the Vatican, don't we? Be nice to go and rummage around the bookshops of.
But no, there was some. It's like there was frescoes of the goddess.
Right, interesting. Well, you know, I think you'll agree with me that all the Christian churches, including the Universal Church, they're all supposed to be about peace. I mean, the point of these great things like the Vatican and every single little parish church, and the reason we went to the mass in that huge park in Glasgow. I mean, the whole point of Christianity is about peace.
Yep, it's all about peace.
And peace.
Now, one of the things that I found fascinating during my studies was that there's five or six different faiths that worship Mary. It's like the Mary, the mother of Jesus, it's not just kept strictly to a Catholic or a Christian thing. It's like in every temple in the world, in every Muslim, there is a wall dedicated. They've got a corner dedicated to Mary.
Yeah,
where people pray to her and honor her, and it's like some people say that it's like the Jewish is it Shekinah?
Yeah, the Shekinah.
It's like it's very similar to to Mary. There's crossovers in similarity, and there's others as well. And then of course the mother Gaia. It's like and some describe Mary as the mother. I mean, it's like when we pray to her and when we ask her, we're asking her as a mother, as a is the mother on earth, and it's like, and it's called Mother Earth. It's not called Father Earth. It's like when we respect the earth and we respect the environment, and we're taught to respect our mothers, we're taught to respect our elders. It's like from a young age we're taught respect, and it's like, well, we used to be. There's not so much of that now, but it's like it's slowly coming back.
Sure, no, it's very important. The mother archetype in religions. I mean, as you know, since I came to France, I set up the Mary Magdalene Studies Association, which is the first such academic body in the world.
Yep.
I think
that's my confirmation name, was Mary Magdalene.
Oh, was it? I think Mary Magdalene is also important. She's the lost saint at the heart of the apostles.
Yep.
She's sometimes called the apostle of the apostles. And
I've read her I've read her Gnostics. I've read her Gospels.
Yeah, they're interesting.
I don't know if did you get a chance to see the Dead Sea Scrolls?
Yes, well, I've been to Jerusalem where the originals are. Yes, I've studied detail.
I got to see them when they came to Kelvin Grove. They had an exhibition of the Dead Sea Scrolls many years ago.
Wow.
I think I was 16 at the time when Dead Sea Scrolls came to Glasgow.
They're amazing.
And that's something else I've never forgotten. It's like the very aura coming off them was amazing, and it's like we bought several books. It's like from the exhibit, all about them, and it's like it's more recent. I mean, even though it was said then, it's a more recent thing. It's like Jesus has been described as a druid. He was a healer. He was a teacher. He wasn't just the Messiah and a prophet. He was almost like one of the an early druid. Well, it's like people came to him with their problems. They came to him for wisdom and guidance. It's like they came to him for to seek peace and wisdom and knowledge, and it's like that's why people went to the Druids.
Yeah, so Saint Columba, who's my favourite Scottish saint, apart from Saint Mungo, Saint Columba said that Christ was his Druid. He associated as a Druid from Ireland. He said there's no difference between being a Druid or being a Christian. It's the same vocation. And I would agree with that 100%. I mean, I'm both, as you know.
Yeah.
I think that the other key thing about the Druids that I love is that they were peacemakers. We know from the classical texts, from Caesar and all the other commentators, they never fought personally. They never would pick up a sword in anger. They would mastermind and direct the warriors if push came to shove and you had to. but they were never actually in the battle. They were the guys up on the hills.
I received threats, not very, very nice threats, saying they were going to put me in a box because I described myself as a pagan Catholic Druid. And they're like, you cannot be all three.
Well, whoever...
There's no such thing. I was like, there is now. There actually has been for years. I was like, if you look at Christianity and the history of it, it's more pagan than what it is. The symbolisms, it's like the very essence of the things that we do, from everything from holly and mistletoe right the way down to the Yule log and the...
Sure. No, whoever said that...
There's a lot of crossovers.
Yeah, whoever said you can't be a pagan Druid and a Catholic is talking nonsense. Unfortunately, there's a lot of ignorant people around. I call them the ignoranti. And they're the mobs who burn down the libraries of learned people. John Dee had a mob coming after him. One of my favorite Catholic thinkers was a man called Cardinal Edgidio. You may not have heard of him.
No, not heard of him.
Okay, Cardinal Edgidio, Egidio. He lived at the time of the Renaissance, at the time of Raphael and all the other great, thinkers. And he made it his life's business to study everything. And he actually loved the Kabbalah so much, Jewish esotericism. He employed rabbis in his house in Rome to translate the great Kabbalistic works into Latin. He had a couple of rabbis working as his secretaries, and studied also all the ancient Etruscan, what we knew about Etruscan law and the pagan history. And he was part of that movement in the church, associated with the Florentine Academy, Marsilio Ficino and others, to take the word Catholic seriously, which means universal. Yeah. So they were looking for universal wisdom that is obviously found in every external religious faith. They're like clothes we put on, but what's the body? What's the essence of this wisdom? Yeah. So that's what Cardinal Edgidio was working on. And interestingly enough, he was the head of the Augustinian order of monks. He was the world head. And when young Luther came to Rome, Luther wasn't very clever. He was just a provincial bumpkin. And he was a bit anti-Semitic. He didn't understand what all this Kabbalah was, And he would have had an interview with Edgidio, who would have tried to educate Luther, who was like his junior. And if I live long enough, I'm going to write a 3-act play of their meeting in Rome, where the universal thinker, the genius of the church, interviews this rough country bumpkin who goes back and starts the Reformation because he didn't understand what true universalism is. Yeah. Anyway, what happened, the tragedy, is that Cardinal Edgidio, when there was a mob that attacked Rome in 1525, I think it was, in the pay of the so-called Holy Roman Emperor was supposed to be nominally in charge of this army. It was some of his generals running. Most of them were German soldiers, mercenaries. A lot of them were Protestants. And for them, it was just a chance to ransack Rome. They hadn't got a clue what they were doing. And they attacked Rome. They shouldn't, this is outrageous. They attacked Rome, right? And they trashed it. They stole lots of stuff. They burned stuff. And poor old Cardinal Eggidio's library went up in smoke. And a lot of the great Renaissance masterpieces were burned in that attack, which is one of the great tragedies of Christian history.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking. It's like to what we've lost. And it's like during the Reformation here, Catholicism was all but eradicated. It's like during that time. There's like after Henry VIII broke away from Rome when he fell out with the Pope, it's because he wouldn't grant him a divorce. And then the Reformation started, and as it started to build traction and build up support, and they came up with, it wasn't as prominent to start with in Scotland. We were able to keep it sort of at bay to England, so to speak, but it did eventually come across the border. And then, of course, in true Scottish style, it's like we protested the Protestants, and it's like. So that's where you get the first Church of Scotland being born. That's where the Church of Scotland comes from. But they destroyed Dunfermline Abbey.
Yeah, so
and all the graves and everything else that was there. It was the Bruce's tomb was completely obliterated, along with everything else. And when they rebuilt it, and Margaret, Saint Margaret, she was eventually sainted.
Yeah,
Who was Malcolm III's wife, who was a Queen of Scotland. It's like, but because she was deemed a saint, her tomb was left outside. So you can still go, you can still see her tomb, but it's not part of the church. When they rebuilt it, they left it outside as part of the grounds. They didn't reinter it inside the church. It's like to build it as it originally was. It would have been inside the chapel. But it's like they took it away from this. They wouldn't do that because she was no, in their eyes at the time. It's like during that period of the time, she wasn't a Queen of Scotland. She was no longer queen when she became a saint.
What are her bones still in the tomb there, or did they desecrate them? Do you know if she's still lying there?
Well, what has happened that they found when they started to dig, and they found a load of bones and a load of and all the rest of it underneath the altar and at the bottom. And they done all sorts of forensic testing and archaeological digs, and it was a huge big where they managed to recognise and that for most of them. So we know, the likes of the Bruce, Saint Margaret, Malcolm III, is like you can go inside them and you can see the refugees and some of them you can see the tombs. It's like of the various different knights as well. It's like the knights, some of the knights that fought with the Bruce are there as well as several other monarchs. And there's also part of there's some of the abbey still standing. So it's like, so part of the grounds is historic Scotland that's in charge of it.
Yeah.
So you can pay to go in, and you can go away down into the abbey and have a look. It's like where the monks would have been, and etc. But the main church is still a working church to this day. But it's the Church of Scotland that have the church. So the church side, if you get into the kirk, that's free. You can go in and have a wee nosy around and look at the effigies and what have you, and visit the tombs that are outside. And you can go inside the kirk as well. But it's like if you want to go beyond that, then there is a fee.
And what happened to Bruce's heart? Did it get brought back to Scotland? I mean,
it did get brought back to Scotland. What he wanted his heart to go to Jerusalem. After he died here, actually, in my area, within the area of West Dunbartonshire. He died, an oldish man here, in his manor home, which is why this area is like Bruce Hill, Castle Hill. It's like, it's all got ties to the Bruce. This entire area was all his land. It's like from the top of Loch Lomond right the way down to just past Dumbarton. And then as far back as Cardross and Helensburgh, this entire land was all the Bruce's. It all belonged to him. All belonged to the king.
Where was his manor house? Is it still standing?
It's not. It's like there's I work with the Strathleven Artisans, King Robert the Bruce Society, and we've been working through time. It's like to try and get various different digs in different areas. It's like we've got a pretty good idea where the manor house might be, where the foundations are, but we've never been given permission to get a proper archaeological dig started and done, to actually find out definitively where it was definitely there. Tunnels were discovered though. It's like at the back end renting. It's like there's a huge big giant hill that goes away up that you can go to Carman Hills, you can go away over it, that takes you into Gurdwara. And a tunnel system was discovered. Some of it's collapsed, so it's like it's not safe to go through. But you could go through one area of tunnelling in the top end of Carman Hill, and you could come out at the bottom end of the renting. It's like just by going through this wee tunnel, you'd find yourself near the river. It's a wee shortcut, it's escape. There's all sorts of escape tunnels and escape routes. It's like to get away from the.
Yeah.
But they don't know because it's not safe and it's not been properly excavated and properly done. They don't know how extensive it is and how vast this tunnelling system is. It's like these escape tunnels. It's like they could be all over Scotland and nobody knows.
So he died near you, and then his body was taken to Dunfermline Abbey, right?
His body was taken to Dunfermline Abbey, so he was buried there, but his heart was to be interred in Jerusalem.
Yeah.
So his right-hand man, the Douglas, and some of his other men all left on a boat. But unfortunately, a great storm welled up and they were forced to pull into port. And they came just off the coast of Spain. They were forced to take refuge. And at the time, it's like the King of Spain, it's like he was being set upon by the Saracens. And they were getting closer and closer to him. So he heard the Bruce's men were in port. And of course, Robert the Bruce was famous even over there. And he came to the men, he's like, please help me. He's like, I need your help. You need to help. They're on their way, and they're better fighters than us. They'll kill us all. Please help.
Right.
And like, I can't. He's like, the minute my feet step land, I need to continue my journey to take my king's heart to Jerusalem. It's like, I'm on pilgrimage, I'm on a holy quest. It's like, this is my vow. So the minute my feet touch land, it'll be to take my king's heart to Jerusalem. And this happened over a few days. He'd go to him and he'd say, look, please, what can I say? He's like, you can't say nothing. He's like, I'm on a holy quest here for my king. It's like, nothing you say is going to. So he's like, look, look, I understand. I've been there myself. Similar happened to me. Okay, fair. So he started to leave. And then as he got, he was still within earshot. And he shouted back to him, I will pay you your weight in gold if you help. That's an insult to a knight. A knight fights for the people. He fights for those that cannot fight for themselves. He fights for honour. He fights for justice. He does not fight for money. So this was a great insult. So of course after this, he had to fight. It was after this he had to fight. So away they went, and he went to the battlefield of Teba, and there's a fabulous festival that happens every year to honour the Douglas, to honour the Bruce's man. And the battle took place, the battle commenced, he threw the king's heart into the battle, and it's like, so even in his death, the king took the charge. Away he went into battle. The story goes that when the Saracens found out, the Bruce's men, that the Douglas and the others were on the battlefield, battle was halted. Everybody laid down arms in respect and love of the Bruce. And even to think of that, I mean, it's like, think of the throes of battle, it's like swords, axes, armour, it's all clinking away, but to stop because of love and honour and respect of certain people. That hundreds of men laid down their arms because of this. But it was too late, the Douglas had died. The Douglas had died in battle. It's like word had got out too late and he passed away in battle.
He got the heart.
But because of the heat, it's like they strip the flesh and the innards and all that kind of stuff. It's like, so the bones came back, they gave their bones and all that kind of back to the men. It says, look, take your man back to back to Scotland, and every reverence was given to him that the king and everybody else could afford. And I can't remember if it's his innards or what part of him, or if it was as his heart or what it is. I'm not sure. I can't remember. But there's a part of him that is interred within Teba Castle, even to this day. You can go and
right.
And we went and paid pilgrimage and paid homage to the Douglas and the men of Bruce and of course Bruce himself, and they were also given the heart back, and we went, that was brought back to Scotland, and that was put into Dunfermline Abbey along with his body. It was interred with his body, and his innards were buried within a small church. It's like here in Dumbarton. It's like you can go. It's just a ruin now. It's just a rubble. But you can go. It's all the sites been all cleaned up. It's like SNP and lottery funding and council funding and some local people and what have you. We all got together, and the site was all cleaned up and made all nice and pretty and all that kind of stuff. And there's a plaque that tells you all about it, and it's like the importance of the church and the importance of the kirk, and it's like how Bruce's innards were interred there.
Is that in Dumbarton? Just to clarify,
it's in Dumbarton. Yep, it's in Dumbarton Park. And as you enter the park, as you're going into the park, it's very easy to find. It's like it doesn't matter where you enter the bottom end. It's like and come along the path, or if you come through the top end, it's like where the Kirry Play Park is, and then go down. It's like you can find it very, very easily. Just follow the path.
I love
it's easily found.
I love the story you told about the battle stopping, and even the Muslims laying down their arms.
Yep. Everybody, they all lay down their arms. It's like an honour of respect of this great man, of this great Scot.
I wonder if it's true. I mean, as a historian, I have to suspend judgment. I'll look into it.
Well, apparently it is. So it's like what we're hoping to do that after, if we're brought back, champ, good boy. If we're brought back, and we're allowed to travel again next year after Teba, we are hoping to go on to Jerusalem as a symbolic journey to finish what the Bruce's men started.
Right, okay, because you
and take, because I don't know if you've ever heard of it. We've got a thing where it's called the Great Oak Project, and within the Bruce love to plant. Sort of going to be journey here. The Bruce loved to plant trees. He planted many yews and many oak trees all over Scotland, especially within his own land and his own area. And what he done, there was a 700. It was dated. It was an oak that was in his manor house within his lands, and exactly 700 years to the day, lightning struck the tree on the 700th anniversary of the Bruce's death. Lightning struck the tree, and unfortunately, it was deemed unsafe. So the council and the tree surgeons and all, they had to knock it, cut it down. But we were given the wood because we're the Robert the Bruce Heritage Centre in society, to educate people about the history of Scotland and about the life and times of the Bruce. I often play Elizabeth de Burgh, who was she was the queen. She was his second wife.
Okay.
She was the second one. She was the longest. She was the longest wife. She was the one that lasted the longest, but she was the second. She was Irish. She was of Irish descendants.
I just watched
Elizabeth de Burgh.
Yeah, I think maybe was she the one that was dangled in a cage outside a castle?
No, they wouldn't do that to her because she was queen. She was captured and she was imprisoned.
Right.
But it was Elizabeth. It was Countess de Buchan, Elizabeth de Buchan, the Countess of Buchan, that was hung from
from the cage.
Hung from the cage. But she was very clever. She was a very wise woman. She used to tease the people down below and heckle them so they'd throw food at her.
So she was the first wife. Was she the first wife?
No, she was the one that crowned him king.
Okay, she wasn't a wife. She was just
no, she was. There's many that believe that they were possibly lovers.
Right.
There's whether that is or isn't the case, nobody will ever know.
Well, we won't spread any gossip here. I mean, let's keep that quiet. You know.
But apparently he had 10 children, so it's like, and Elizabeth the Bird didn't give them all 10. she only had two. She only had a few. She didn't have all them, and he only had one to his first wife, Marjorie.
Let me ask you a question. Do you know your family tree? Have you got any links to the Bruce, do you think, genealogically?
I do through marriage. I don't through my side. My family through my mum's side, through my mum's line, is all Mackenzie. It's so we can trace ours back to the actual to the Highland clans. And my grandmother, she was a Connor. So hers is from the Irish descendants from the south of Ireland. So we can trace her heritage back in the Irish side. I think we went back 10 generations. It's like so right the way back to the Highland clearances.
Yeah, sure.
It's like so I could trace my family right the way back to the actual clans themselves. But my husband's family, his mum was descendants of the Stuarts, and the Stuarts married into the Bruces.
Right.
So my ancestors that way are related through marriage.
Yeah.
My daughters would be related through blood because of their dad's side.
Right. Fascinating. Okay.
Because my dad's side is Irish descendants.
Right.
Like, even though they're now in Scotland, it's an Irish name, so it's like they would have been all of Irish descendant.
Well, the Scots is originally the word for Irish in Latin. I mean, it's Scotia, means island and Scotland. So there's obviously a link there.
Yeah. There's very, very close ties within the two.
Yeah, but it sounds to me as if Bruce was a bit of an interesting character, and I think when you've done your latest degree in religious studies, I hope you'll write a new biography of him.
Oh, he had many loves and many interests, and he was a fascinating man. It's like he loved Scotland. He absolutely loved Scotland. And it's like Scotland was his heart. And there's a story that when the Bruce died, when he passed, and his men told the bells of the church to let them know that it happened. It was time he'd passed away. Wailing could be heard throughout the land.
Right.
It's like the entire country wept for the loss of the Bruce, because he was such a great king. He was such a great leader. It's like wailing could be heard without the land. That was it. That was the story. And then it's like there's other great Scotsmen like Wallace and Robert Burns. It's like the greatest bard and poet. Is like everybody sings one of his poems every year in Hogmanay, and it's like he's sung the world over. It's like it doesn't matter who you are, everybody knows Auld Lang Syne, and it's like whether you've heard of Burns or not, you've heard about Auld Lang Syne. It's like, and he was a great contender for Scottish independence as well. He wanted to fight for Scotland's freedom and for Scottish independence. It's like so even the bard wanted to see Scotland free.
Let's move forward to the contemporary thing. We're coming to the end of our little chat. But you and I have set up this Intellectuals for Free Scotland, IFS.
Yes.
And it seems to me that intellectuals have a duty. I mean, I studied Scottish history, but because I was educated at the University of London and went to school in Brighton, we were never really taught Scottish history. I had to go and live there to appreciate the story. And I mean, I was struck. Obviously, I studied the Enlightenment a lot in European history, and many great things spread the Enlightenment, and they came from Scotland. One of my favorites is Chevalier Ramsay, he was called. He was a Jacobite. A lot of these very strong Scottish Jacobites came to France, and he set up the Scottish Freemasons, which kick-started the Enlightenment. He lived at the court of Saint-Germain in just outside Paris, where James II, the Stuart, was based. And I went to Saint-Germain on pilgrimage. It's now the Archaeological Museum of France. It was the castle palace where James Stuart lived, James II, who was actually a much wiser man than people realize, very clever man, and a real scholar, and you know, a Catholic by conviction. Newton was a fan of James II and dedicated the Principia Mathematica to him. And James II brought in the first declaration of religious tolerance in Britain.
Well, even Joan of Arc, is her guard, her personal guard, were all Scotsmen.
Really, I didn't know.
It was the Scots that protected and looked after Joan of Arc.
Yeah, you're better at military history than me. I mean, you do battle reenactments and archery, don't you? And you came to the Castle of the Muses with a whole battle reenactment. That was fun.
That's right. I used to, we had bows and arrows and bits and bobs. It's like I had archery as part of the memorial. It's like because my dad was an archery instructor, and then many years later, I trained to be an archery instructor.
So you can shoot a bow how far?
The furthest I've ever shot is 1/2 mile.
Are you serious? An arrow, 1/2 mile?
Yes, but it's like I could possibly do it further, but it's like I'd need the land and the safety to do it.
Is that with a longbow? Is that a longbow?
Yes.
And you've got in your archery squad, you can make longbows. You actually have you've used the original design.
Yeah, we've used the original design. It's like we've got a medieval yew bow. They were traditionally made of yew. Within Loch Lomond, it's like there's a lot of small islands dotted around inside the loch.
Yeah.
And one of the islands is covered in yew wood. And that's because the Bruce ordered that yew was to be planted there strictly for his archers.
Right.
What they do is like if you were caught on the island and you were not an archer, it was an instant death sentence. It's like, but if an archer said to you, right, you're volunteering, I need your help because we need to whittle 500 arrows and 200 bows. So come on, you're coming with me to give me a hand to get all this wood. So that was like, that was fine. You go, hey, wait a minute, there's the archer over there. He said, he grabbed me. He said, I'm allowed, honest. But if you were caught there on your own,
yeah,
and you went with an archer, because wood was, that was their bread and butter. It's like that was their lifeline. They needed the. So it's like that was. But yes, I've got.
Have you?
Fact, there you go. This is a medieval arrow. So it would have been strung with thread to go round the top. Right. It's like there's some, and then at the bottom, that would have been to pierce the.
Yeah.
Squeeze through the chainmail.
Right. Yeah. I'll bow to your superiority in military stuff. I mean, as a Druid and a Christian, of course, I prefer non-violence. I mean, I'm hoping you can get independence this time non-violently, and don't have to do Bannockburn again. What are the prospects for independence? How are you going to get your second referendum, and when's it happening?
Well, Nicola Sturgeon and the rest of the Scottish government have all said we need to keep our heads. We need to be sensible. It's like it's time for to be intellectual. You need to think about the next steps, about the steps ahead of what's happening. We're still recovering from a pandemic, a worldwide pandemic. You know, it's like we're still in recovery. It's still going through. You know, the economy has to recover. Travel has to recover. People have to, I mean, people have lost their businesses, they've lost their livelihoods, they've lost everything. So that takes time to build back up. It's like people from the European Union is said, you know, it's like, look, we'll take Scotland in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
And there's been articles that have said it's like they'll accept Scotland within 10 seconds. I mean, whether that's true or not, I don't know. But I read an article that said one of them apparently claimed that he'd take Scotland within 10 seconds of being asked.
I think it's pretty true. They'd have to go through. Obviously,
and one of the things that they said, it's like that they would get rid of Trident as part of, you know, they would they'd still have the base. Oh, it's like but it would be more of a piece. But you know, the navy could still be there. You know, they could still do the manoeuvre, still train, still, you know, all that kind of stuff. But the nuclear weapons would be gone.
So Culport Mountain could be turned.
You know, so it's like the weapons of mass destruction would be decommissioned and gone. You know, it's like and it says, look, you can have it up here for now, because it's not safe to go down at the moment. It's like, you know, it's like if it was suddenly just shipped away down, and then it's like, you know, God forbid nothing does happen, but if it did, you know, it'd be our fault. You know, it's like, of course we'd be blamed. So it has to be done safely. It has to be done sensibly. There has to be that crossover. It's like security checks. They need to build a base. They need to build various other things. You know, so it's like if they want to keep it, that is. Well, England might decide not to keep it. They might decide, you know, it's like, you know, you're right. It's not worth it. Let's just get rid of it. But if they want to keep it, then they're going to need to build a safe space for it. They're going to need to have somewhere for it.
I'd prefer it just goes completely and could be part of a worldwide nuclear disarmament.
I mean, it's like they've said that it's like the Queen could stay as the head of state. I mean, it's like she's a figurative head of state for Canada and Australia. She could be the same here. Scotland already has her own money. It's like our King Robert the Bruce is on Scottish money. Sure. And it's like, and there's actually many places, for all it's like they call it the Union, you know, it's like better together and all that kind of place. There's a lot of places, many places in England that refuse to accept Scottish money. They won't accept Scottish 10 or £20 notes, or even the £5, any Scottish currency at all. They won't accept it. They refuse to accept it as legal tender.
I know. I had
even though it's part of this, even though it's part of the sterling.
Yeah, I know. It's a paradox, isn't it? Okay, look, I think we're coming to the end of our chat here. It's been fascinating to talk to you. Any final thoughts about the importance of midsummer? We're here in celebrating June, and it's the Battle of Bannockburn anniversary. I think it's coming up to St. Peter's Day, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that's coming up soon as well. It all tells us to pause. Oh, it's like if you look at history, it's like it's repeated time and time again. It's like, come on, people, learn from it. It's like, you know, take a pause, take a breath. And it's like, you know, many people have started yoga. You know, use those teachings. Stop, take a breath. It's like, look at the world around you. Learn from the mistakes of the past. It's like history is not ours to agree or disagree with. It's not ours to eradicate. It's not ours to change or do what we want with, but it is ours to learn from. It is ours to teach from it and repeat it, and you know, so these things don't happen again. That they're not repeated, that they're not done time and time again, so that wars don't happen, so that fights don't, so discrimination and racism and sectarianism, and it's like, even with myself, it's like I'm going through also, it's like I've been declared disabled, and it's like the amount of people that have come out with, you don't look disabled. Well, you don't look ignorant, but there you go. It's like, seriously, you know, I mean, even that sentence, it's, you don't know what's going to trigger someone. You don't know their story. You don't know their past, their their path until you've walked in their shoes. Oh, and that's just part of the solstice. You know, it's, you know, take a breath, stop. Oh, it's like, pray to whoever you pray to. It doesn't matter the name you call God. It doesn't matter that it's like it could be Madonna for all we care. You know, it's like it does. Just take that breath. No, stop, listen, learn, teach. No, it's like, don't take away your prejudices. Oh, ask those questions. Oh, find a teacher, find a philosopher, find a theologian, find someone and go, look, it's like, you know, I'm curious. It's like, I really want to know these questions. They have a thing, it's like in Europe, and I think it's fabulous. It's called the Human Library. It's amazing. I'd love to see that here. I really want it here. I'd love to have it here. And what they do, instead of taking out a book, you take out a person. So if you're curious to know about benefits, or about a certain disability, or about a religion, or about a lifestyle, or about anything at all, you can book that person and you sit one-to-one and have a conversation. So you can find out more about what that person's story is. Oh, and it's like, it's all manners of lifestyles. It's like from, you know, people that have battled drugs and addiction, and, you know, to you know, what led them to, you know, was it drugs that led them to prostitution? Was it because it's like, you know, it was a case they couldn't find a job? It's like, you know, they had no other choice. It was do this or starve. You know, it's, you don't know what leads people to choices and to what happens to them. So I thought that was a fantastic idea. It was brilliant. Human Library, yes, wonderful. Get that, listen to people's stories,
Yeah.
find out their you know, find out what they have to teach us. That's a great idea. Yes, let's have this. Yeah, no. I handed it. There was I don't know if you know it. There was an experiment that happened just to finish off down in England. It's like a load of teachers and theologians and philosophers and what have you all decided to have this experiment down in England, and they gave children of various different ages. It's like mostly primary school age books, and they didn't know how to turn the page. And that is very sad to me. There were many of them that tried to swipe it like you would a Kindle or an iPad or something. You know, it's like they tried to swipe the page. You know, they're wondering why this page isn't turning. You know, why it's not just flicking automatically onto the next page. It's like they didn't fathom that they had to physically turn the page over, and that's sad.
Yeah. Can I ask you just one last thing before we finish then? Can you go and get me your favorite book and just show us it? Because I know you and I both love books. Just one of your favorite books?
Oh, wow. Let's see, one of my favorite books. Actually, there's one just, I have it right here. There's one in front of me. It's been, I love this one at the moment. It's called Healing Plants of the Celtic Druids.
Okay, I haven't seen that one. Angela Payne.
Yes, it's wonderful. It's fantastic. And it's ancient Celts in Britain and their Druid healers. It's like using natural, and there's all sorts of fascinating plant life and old waste and old healing things that we didn't think of. I've started using. I made honey from dandelions and lavender. I made my own honey, and also made healing poultices and soups and what have you from stinging nettles. And in the past, a stinging nettle was an annoyance. It was a thing that you had to find a dock leaf for. It's like, but apparently stinging nettles have more vitamin C than a bag of oranges.
Amazing.
It's wonderfully healing. It's anti-inflammatory. It's amazing for arthritis, for all sorts of. It's got all manners of wonderful vitamins and minerals and all sorts of stuff in it. So it's a great herb.
Yeah, and from nettles you can make rope. I learned that at a Druid camp. We made rope twine from nettles. They're brilliant because they're really strong nettles. Show us page 30 of your book. Has it got any illustrations?
Let's see, page 30. On page 30 is the Botany Botanica. It's like by the, there we go. Nice picture of a
Bethany.
Right, there we go.
It's a proper manual. You could use this for healing now. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a proper, it's like, I mean, it's got native, I mean, it's based in Britain, so it's got like marshmallow, meadowsweet and mugwort and oak and, you know, things that it's like you'd find here in Britain, which is why I bought it. You know, it's even got, you know, uses for celery and all that kind of, you know, so you can have a look at it and find it properly. And it's like, and so yeah, so that's one of my favorites at the moment.
Right. Well, thank you for sharing that. I must get a copy here at the library here. And, I hope you'll come and visit here in France when we're all able to move again. And good luck with the Intellectuals for Free Scotland. Let's keep going with that. And Now Scotland, that's a big, important campaigning group.
I'd love to. And if I manage to get my worldwide peace and religious festival ever happening, you'll need to come and speak at it.
It'd absolutely be an honor. I mean, you know, I love Glasgow. I spent many a happy hour in the university library there. It's just a superb library. So good luck to you in Scotland and happy solstice. And good luck to all the work you're doing. I hope, I'm sure the Bruce is very proud of you and all your colleagues, keeping his memory going. And I'm sure he would be very much, like you say, biding his time, using your head. Independence for Scotland now, I think, is a really important ethical question.
As she says, it's like it will happen.
Yeah,
you know, it's time to happen. You know, the Scottish people have seen what Westminster's been doing. It's when the sensible time is for it to happen. No,
I think Nicola's working on that. So good luck, Morag, and thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us. And happy solstice.
Thank you very much. It's been wonderful.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, love, light and blessings to all.
Yeah. Thank you.